We are dedicating this week's show to pro-life analysis of the 2020 Democratic National Committee Convention. Former Vice President Joe Biden formally accepts the Democratic Party's presidential nomination at this week's mostly virtual DNC convention. Many pro-life leaders say the Biden-Harris ticket is the most pro-abortion in American history. The 2020 DNC convention doesn't look like what anyone expected. Due to the coronavirus, instead of in a big arena, Democrats this week held almost all of their 2020 nominating convention virtually instead of in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was largely scaled back. But the convention's main mission moved forward to officially announce Joe Biden as the 2020 Democratic presidential candidate and Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate. Many pro-life leaders call the Biden-Harris campaign the most pro-abortion ticket in U.S. history.
We will protect women's constitutional right to choose.
Biden, who served 36 years in the U.S. Senate before becoming President Barack Obama's VP, had long supported the Hyde Amendment, which protects taxpayer dollars from going to abortion. But now, as the Democratic presidential nominee, he wants to repeal it. Biden has also recently said he would end the Little Sisters of the Poor's exemption from the Obamacare contraception mandate if elected, while simultaneously touting his Catholic faith throughout his campaign.
I just walked out the side door of St. Peter's Basilica after a meeting and getting an opportunity to shake hands and have a brief conversation with Pope Francis.
And with Biden's announcement last week that California Senator Kamala Harris is his running mate, pro-life leaders were quick to point to her extreme pro-abortion record, such as when she campaigned on the promise state pro-life laws would first need to receive her Justice Department approval.
And until that law is determined to be in compliance with Roe v. Wade and its progeny, it cannot go into effect.
And while working as California's Attorney General, Harris had Center for Medical Progress's David Daleiden investigated over his undercover Planned Parenthood videos. She even ordered a raid on his apartment. Daleiden told EWTN Pro-Life Weekly last year the investigation happened as Planned Parenthood was simultaneously funding Harris's Senate campaign.
We have in the investigator notes from the Attorney General's office now, they recorded in their case notes Planned Parenthood specifically requesting of Kamala Harris's office that they would specifically go in and seize the videos from me. That's just one of many things that Kamala Harris, as Attorney General of California, was willing to do to put the powers of her law enforcement office at the service of the interests of a powerful and favored political backer at Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood has endorsed the Biden campaign for presidency, but there are Democrats who do not approve of his abortion advocacy. Just last week, over 100 Democratic politicians called for the DNC to moderate its official position on abortion in a letter to the platform committee. Joining us now via Skype is pro-life Democrat, Louisiana State Senator Katrina Jackson. Katrina, welcome back to the show. You are one of the over 100 Democratic politicians calling on your party to moderate its official position on abortion. What exactly do you think the Democratic Party platform should be when it comes to abortion?
Well, when I joined the party at 18, of course, when I registered to vote, the Democratic Party's platform was a very diverse position. It was not so strongly aligned with choice, and life advocates had a place in the party as well. We were considered, and still are in so many ways, the big tent party, where we understood that Democrats had varying beliefs on abortion and whether they were pro-life or pro-choice. We could all coexist in the party because we had so many other issues that we agreed upon. We find ourselves in a situation where the votes of a few that lead the party have tended to exclude our pro-life position. We consider, of course, I've said this a number of times, whole life, and so we would like them to see the party go back to that position that understands that Democrats are diverse in their belief on abortion and that they are pro-life Democrats all across the nation.
Is it possible to even have a moderate position on abortion? Can you clarify that?
A moderate position. My position is clear. I'm pro-life. And so I think you're either pro-life or pro-choice. I think what we saw from former Vice President Biden at some point was he was, I think, what you would consider moderate. He was in favor of the Hyde Amendment and some other issues, and also was not in favor of late-term abortions, as I understand it, at some point. So I guess that's what you would consider moderate. I don't consider myself moderate. I am 100% whole life. And so that's where I am, and I can speak for me. As per the party has always, up until probably the last 8 to 10 years, had a position on abortion that was, for those who were pro-choice, it was safe, legal, and rare. And they welcomed pro-lifers into the party, and that's what we would like to see.
What's your response to people who say, if you're pro-life, it's time to get out of the Democratic Party?
Well, I'm whole life. And so coming out of the Democratic Party definitely doesn't mean going into the Republican Party, because there are things that I believe in as passionately regarding life that the Republican Party doesn't believe in. One thing that's really big to me is making sure that people have access to health care, making sure that the quality of life as a person, I care about the life from conception to death. And what that looks like is a myriad of legislation that doesn't agree with either party 100%. And so when people say that, I tell them that the bottom line is I'm an American first, and I'm a Christian, number one. And so my party platform does not designate where I am on any given issue. When the party agrees with me, we fight alongside each other. When they don't, we fight on opposite ends. That would be my same place in the Republican Party, because I don't agree with everything that the Republican Party believes in. I don't believe in the death penalty. I believe that the death penalty is a life issue. So I would definitely not fit into the Republican Party. And so for those who are telling us that, on 70% of our issues, we align with the Democratic Party. On the life issue, we do not.
What is your reaction? No, continue, please.
Yeah, on issues really regarding Christianity, where we stand, what our Bible tells us, we don't align with them on those issues. But on other social issues like access to health care, Medicaid expansion, criminal justice reform, and those issues, we align with the party.
What is your reaction to Joe Biden's selection of Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate? And what does this pick signal to pro-life Democrats such as yourself?
I don't think that pick signal anything. I respect her as a woman. I respect her for her hard work in other areas outside of the pro-life arena, okay? But we knew what we were facing, and we've been facing it for a year as pro-life Democrats, trying to take our positions back in the party, and for the party to be diverse and open to us. That doesn't change with a pick of Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate in his selection, because Joe Biden had already made his stance on abortion known.
Do you have any hope for the future of pro-lifers in your party? Are you seeing any signs of encouragement there?
Yes. Recent polls have shown that overwhelmingly, like a third or more Democrats registered in the United States are pro-life. And so what you're seeing now is us coming together nationally to take our rightful place back in the party, and to do away with this pro-choice. You must be pro-choice. You must be a pro-choice advocate to be in the Democratic Party. What you see us doing now, and this is why I have encouragement and hope for us, is that you're seeing us come together like never before to take our rightful seat.
And I know we mentioned you were one of the signatures on that letter of pro-life Democratic politicians to the DNC Platform Committee. Do you have any hope that they will respond to that letter and make any changes or adoptions to the platform stance on abortion?
I do, because the bottom line is this: when a poll shows that over a third of Democrats in this nation are pro-life, you either lose at some point a third of your membership, which weakens your party, or you come back to the table and you come back to where you were when we joined this party.
Louisiana State Senator Katrina Jackson, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For more analysis on this week's DNC convention and the Biden presidential campaign, we're joined by this week's pro-life panel. Marjorie Dannenfelser is the president of the Susan B. Anthony List and co-chair of Pro-Life Voices for Trump. Ramesh Ponnuru is senior editor for National Review and author of The Party of Death, The Democrats, the Media, the Courts, and the Disregard for Human Life. Thank you both for being here. First off, I'd like to take a look at the DNC party platform. The Democratic Party says it will restore funding for Planned Parenthood, repeal the Hyde Amendment, and protect and codify Roe versus Wade. Marjorie, first, can you put this platform into perspective for us?
Well, in two ways, historically, which no one knows this better than Ramesh. In fact, he literally wrote the book on it. But historically, the Democratic Party has been the party of the little guy, the one to protect the weak. This is a complete flip-flop, a flip script from what they used to be. I used to work for a pro-life Democrat. And so the other way, I think, to look at it, where we can just recite, and we have many times on this show, how the Democratic platform has absolutely zero protections for the unborn child. But I put it in the perspective of, say, how Ralph Northam did when he communicated that he wouldn't save a child that had been born alive. So we considered it and talked it over with parents. Think about that child born alive in Virginia or New York who has absolutely no legal protection. And that is the issue of the Democratic platform. At no point in the gestation of the child, absolutely no protection up or after.
Ramesh, what's your reaction to the DNC's party platform this year?
If you look at the Democratic Party's platform language about abortion over time, you see a party that is steadily becoming more extreme. The Democratic platform back in the Bill Clinton era talked about making abortion safe, legal, and rare. It doesn't call for abortion to be rare anymore, just safe and legal. It now includes, for 2016 and 2020, for the first time, these last two times, it includes an explicit call for getting rid of the Hyde Amendment, which has been in place for more than 40 years now and keeps the federal government from funding elective abortions through Medicaid. So that's been something that has been maintained under Republican and Democratic presidencies alike. And now the Democratic Party is against it because it wants taxpayers to fund abortion, which is a very striking illustration of how little they are interested in making abortion rare, let alone protecting unborn life in the law.
Ramesh, when did we begin to see this shift happen to this extreme abortion agenda within the Democratic Party?
Well, I think that the party has been slowly shedding all of its formerly pro-life elements. That took a long time. It was a long process by which pro-lifers found that they no longer had a footing in the Democratic Party. There were a lot of milestones along the way. The 1992 Democratic Convention, when Bob Casey, the governor of Pennsylvania, popular governor who was a pro-life Democrat, was not permitted to speak about life at the Democratic Convention. That was one of those milestones. And it has just subsequently become ever more extreme. You saw the dropping of the language about abortion being rare. Even in 2012, you still had Democratic platform language saying, well, okay, we'll fund social programs to reduce the need for abortion. And now even that's gone. There's nothing that suggests that there's anything in any way regrettable about abortion.
Now to examine the Democratic presidential nominee himself, Joe Biden. Biden has a long political record from his time serving in the Senate to his time in the White House as vice president. Marjorie, what is Biden's record on the pro-life issue?
Well, he used to be in sync with sort of the mainstream old school Democrat position, which was relatively pro-life. I would never say he was vociferously pro-life, but he was definitely for the Hyde Amendment. He argued for it in pretty strong pro-life language, but in a way that I think is not consistent with how most conversions are occurring. He converted, so-called, to the pro-abortion position, the pro-choice position, from his perspective. So he's gone from thinking this is a cherished gift from God to something expendable that we ought to actually be forced to pay for. That is an enormous shift, and it's exactly the opposite of the Trump shift. He went from being adamantly pro-choice discovering the beauty, the preciousness of that unborn child, and believing very much that it should be protected in the law, and that should be forced to take. And the conflict that difference in him and in the Democratic Party that Ramesh outlined so beautifully is an enormous chasm between the elites of the Democratic Party, the party players and the ones who form the platform, and the grassroots who vote on who will be the next president and who senators are, and therefore they have created a great political opportunity to pick up Democrat votes in battleground states.
Ramesh, what do you think viewers should know about Biden's political record on life?
Well, Marjorie accurately summarized it. He was, I would say, pro-choice, but he was willing to make certain compromises. He was willing to say that taxpayers should not have to fund abortion. And he flipped on that in order to make this presidential run. And I think it's really striking about the priorities of today's Democratic Party, because Joe Biden did not have to give in and say he was for Medicare for all. He did not have to say he wanted to abolish ICE, the immigration restriction enforcer. He did not say he was for banning fracking, but he did have to flip on taxpayer funding for abortion, because that is now, unfortunately, a core commitment of the Democratic Party.
California Senator Kamala Harris. Oh, go for it, Marjorie.
Sorry, I just wanted to add significantly, because I don't want it to get past us, is that he now has a litmus test for judges when it concerns Roe versus Wade. And that is potentially the most high impact position he has in, regarding abortion. Anyway.
No, that's absolutely important to highlight there. And in addition to that, just last week announced that California Senator Kamala Harris is officially the Democratic nominee for vice president. A bit about Harris: while she was California's attorney general, she investigated David Daleidon's undercover Planned Parenthood video and even ordered a raid on his apartment. Marjorie, what should we know about Harris's ties to Planned Parenthood?
Well, she makes Biden look adamantly pro-life. She is someone who believes that even having religious conviction, especially if your religious conviction leads you to have a pro-life position, that should disqualify you from being a judge. That's what she revealed in her own examination of a judge recently from Nebraska for a district court position. Her pro-abortion position is so thoroughgoing. It has nothing in common with any of the vestiges of an old school Democrat way of thinking. So combine that ticket really puts a lot of distance between that ticket and the Rust Belt states and the people who will decide basically who becomes president in battleground states have some religious conviction very often, especially Catholic, and also hold a very strongly pro-life position, or at least a normal one, or what America considers normal.
Ramesh, on the life issue, what is your reaction to Harris being on the Democratic ticket as VP?
Harris combines strong support for abortion with a kind of intolerant authoritarianism. And you could see it in her attempt to keep somebody off the federal bench just because he was a member of the Knights of Columbus, a case that Marjorie referred to. You can see it in her view that the federal government should step in and require states to get approval from the federal government before they do anything that might restrict abortion. So abortion becomes this sort of super right, even though it's not in the Constitution. It's protected in a way that actual constitutional rights aren't.
Wow. Well, I could talk to you both at such greater length on this exact topic. So grateful for you both for your analysis. I do want to note to our viewers, for more information and resources on what Catholic voters should know ahead of Election Day and the Church's teachings, go to EWTN.com/vote. Marjorie Dannenfelser with the Susan B. Anthony List and Ramesh Ponnuru with National Review. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Catherine.